The Angels haven't beaten the Reds since June 26, 2019. They're 0-8 in that span. So would things change on Monday night? The answer is...
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The answer's no. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels played the Reds last night. We've got 3 things that you need to know about that game. The Halos' approach to the plate this season has produced a very telling stat, and we're going to share that with you in segment number 2. And then Bryce Teodosio makes the Angels' outfield defense a whole lot better, and yet he can still improve. We're going to talk about how in our third segment. But before we talk about our favorite team, let's talk about our sponsor, FanDuel. Football season is right around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets right now.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, it's our 4th season as a host of Locked On Angels. Lifelong Angels fans talking Angels baseball with you every single day, every single weekday. We're here. You got Gavin Carlson for the postcast. Wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find us on those audio platforms. And whether you're watching or listening, get into the conversation by finding today's show on YouTube. Get in the comments section, and while you're there, hit that like and subscribe button, and then tag us on social media or send us a DM at Locked On Angels on Twitter, at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram, and give us your thoughts on today's discussion.
Yeah, and come bowling with us at the 2nd annual Logan O'Hoppe All-Star Bowl, Sunday, September 7th from 5 to 8:30 p.m. We're going to raise some money for the YMCA of Orange County. Get your tickets in the episode description. There's a link there, and when you check out, use the promo code HaloBros, and let us know if you're coming. Put it in the comments. Say, I'm coming bowling. Can't wait to do that with you on Sunday, September 7th.
Yeah, we want to hear from you. Let us know that you're going to be there and come bowl with us. We're going to have a lot of fun. Mike, let's get into this loss from last night. The Angels fell 4-1 to the Cincinnati Reds. Here we go.
Yeah, they're 0-9 against the Reds since 2019. Not good. So first takeaway, John, Angel starters have really struggled in the first inning over the last 5 games. They've allowed 8 runs in the first inning in those 5 games. 3 of those runs were allowed by last night's starter, Victor Medeiros, when he started for the first time this season and in his career against the Dodgers. And then he gave up 2 more last night. He surrendered a 2-run home run to Gavin Lux in the first inning. It was a home run on the changeup. Here's what's interesting, John. He never threw the changeup again. He threw 2 of them, and after that, he didn't throw any more, right?
Yeah, he threw it up high, and that's the one that Lux knocked out of the park. And so, yeah, got away from that, stuck with the sinker, the sweeper, and the slider. He cleaned things up in the second inning. Medeiros got the first 2 hitters, but then he allowed a 2-out single and a walk, but he got Elly De La Cruz to strike out looking. Third inning was a big inning for Victor Medeiros. He gave up a leadoff triple, but that brought the infield in. Medeiros got Marte to line out to Christian Moore. He got Steer to foul out to third base, and then he walked Trevino, but he got Ke'Bryan Hayes to line out to Ward in left, so he prevented that run at third from coming in to score. It was one of 3 triples to lead off an inning, the first time that's ever happened in the history of Angel Stadium. Fourth inning was also a quick one for Victor Medeiros. Felt like he was gaining some confidence here, and this inning was important because it was his first 1-2-3 inning, and he didn't have to throw that many pitches, just 8 in the fourth. And to wrap things up on his night, he allowed another leadoff triple, but this time the Reds were able to score on a sacrifice fly. That was the 3rd run allowed by Medeiros. He walked the next batter, Spencer Steer, on 4 pitches, gave up his 9th hit of the night to Trevino in a 10-pitch at bat. With the bases loaded, Medeiros got Ke'Bryan Hayes to pop out to Shawnuel, and he finished the inning by getting McLean to pop out to Shawnuel again. So it was a gritty, gutsy start from Medeiros. 5 innings, 9 hits, 3 runs, 3 walks, 3 Ks on 95 pitches. The Halos offense really needed to pick him up, Mike. But one thing I feel like that was a conversation on social media was, what do you think of this guy so far? And it doesn't seem like he has the out pitch from the eye test. Others were saying, it was a gutsy performance. Here's the thing. Is this not what we want the Angels to do at this point in time with a guy like Victor Medeiros, to have him up in the big leagues and give him a shot and see what he can do? I mean, is this part of the development? What do you think?
Oh, heck yeah. This is what you want to do. The problem is that the Angels just aren't sure what their strategy is.
Yeah, they're going for it. They're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to talk about Christian Moore tomorrow, but like he's in there sometimes, he's not, because you got to give Rengifo and Moncada at bats. But then at the same time, they're like, well, we're going to move some pieces around. We're going to bring up Fermin and we're going to DFA Connor Brogdon. And so it just, there's not a strategy here with Medeiros. I have one more thought, but go ahead with yours.
I was going to say, you mentioned Rengifo. He's not playing the rest of the week. If I'm the manager of this team. And we'll get to that in just a second, but go ahead.
Yeah. I really, what Victor Medeiros reminded me of last night, John, was a bit of Jack Kahanowitz last year. Kahanowitz was good last year, but he didn't have that out pitch. He didn't have that strikeout pitch. He didn't have that, I'm going to get him with this type of pitch. And that's what I felt like Medeiros didn't have last night. Now, he did struggle a bit with the walks, with the 3 walks, but he was able to work around that. And then some bad defense behind him. Again, able to work around that. But it did feel like a bit like Jack Kahanowitz last year. And so I'd love to see a bit more from Victor Medeiros. I'd love for him to just be a starter throughout the rest of the season, because I think these reps are really good for him. And I mean, why not? Because if we think that we're going anywhere, we're fooling ourselves. And I think all of our everydayers and Angel fans recognize we're not going anywhere. And so this is a message to Perry Manassian and the whole leadership structure in Angel Stadium. We're not going anywhere. So let's see some of these young batters. Let's see some of these young pitchers. Let's see what we have in the minor leagues, and let's stop playing the veterans who are not going to be here at the end of the year and next year. Let's stop playing them regularly and start playing some of the younger guys to see what we got.
Yeah. There was a great picture of Perry Manassian floating around social media last night, just like this.
Us too, Perry. Us too.
Yeah, exactly.
Second takeaway, John, is the Angels had some first inning success of their own. They scored 7 runs in the first inning in the last 5 games, including that 1 run they scored last night in the first inning, and it ended up being the only run they scored after Shawnuel singled, Mike Trout drew a walk, and Taylor Ward doubled down the right field line, and Nolan Shawnuel scored. But they're going to need more, and they would need more. They had opportunities, John.
Yeah.
They would get 2 on with less than 2 outs in the bottom of the 8th. But Moncada would strike out looking. Then another chance in the bottom of the 7th. Sorry, that was the bottom of the 6th. Bottom of the 7th, they had 2 outs with runners at first and second. Zach Neto up, and he flies out to the deepest part of center field. That was frustrating. I knew that he didn't get it just based upon when you were watching the center fielder, right? And just for those that are in the stadium, just watch the outfielders. They'll tell you every single time if that ball is going over the wall or not. But unfortunately, it goes to the deepest part of the ballpark. And he flies out. I mean, that center fielder, it was touching. His back was touching the center field wall.
You know, where the wall, the left field and center field meet, and there's kind of a corner, like not quite a 90-degree angle, but like you can see where the walls meet, and that's where it was. And that's literally the deepest part of the outfield there. So, just a bummer that he flew out there. Angels got a 3rd straight chance to score in the bottom of the 8th. Mike, they had 2 on and 2 out, and this time it was Joe Adell at the plate, but he struck out swinging against Scott Barlow, who ended up taking the last 2 innings for the Reds. Man, he sucked when he was a Royal. He was like their closer for a while, and he was a closer during the bad years of the Royals. Now he's their, the 8th inning guy, and then also apparently the 9th inning guy for the Reds here. So, and he stunk. And they mentioned on the broadcast a 6 ERA against the Angels in his career, but apparently the Reds got him right down in
Looked
Cincinnati.
great last night, didn't he? It was just the epitome of the Angels season. John, third takeaway, this is bad defense on display for the Halos last night. First, why don't you talk about Taylor Ward's incredible play in left field?
Taylor Ward let a triple happen because he fell down.
He fell down
in left field.
I fell down.
The ball was dropping. You could tell he was thinking about diving. You could tell he was thinking about going for it, and he called it off at the very last moment. And instead of just, not going for it, he slipped and the ball got past him and went to the wall. So you might as well have dove for that one, because if you had missed it, that the same result would have happened there. Right, Mike? And I don't know why I texted you and I said, Taylor Ward is a dork. Like, he's just the definition of a dork sometimes. And so that was a terrible example of defense last night.
If this was, PE class in high school, right? Like, everybody would look out to left field and go, Oh man. Right.
Yeah.
Just like, hey, get him next time. Right. Like, but it would just, the dork fell down. Right. Then later in the game, John, and this one really, really frustrated me. Rengifo takes over for Bryce Teodosio after pinch hitting for him. And the ball that was hit to him from Ke'Bryan Hayes was just a shot to center field. Now, this would have been an easy out. You just would have caught it. It would have been an easy out. Maybe you're jogging to get it. But the ball goes over Rengifo's head because his first step was in. Now, let me take you back to Little League, friends. In Little League, they say your first step is always back. You always go back because you can move faster as you're running forward than you are going backwards. And here's what really frustrated me. Not that he missed the ball, although that was frustrating. But then he jogged. He jogged to that, didn't hustle, he was not full sprint. And Ke'Bryan Hayes was just cruising around to third base. Yeah. And then they got a sac fly, and the Reds scored their fourth run. It was the third triple of the game. John, yank him. Get him out, right? Yeah. Like, guy's not on the team anymore at the end of the year. So it's time to – he's done this way too many times. And that was the epitome of the culture of the Angels. We've talked about the word casual pretty often on this show the last couple of days, last couple of weeks. That's it. You saw it. That's exactly the culture that they've created. This, I'll
get it.
I'm going to grab it. Oopsie. Right? It felt like the Sandlot, right? Sorry. And then Smalls runs back and gets hit. And don't be a goofus. That's what it felt like, and it's terrible. It was awful. So I forgive Taylor Ward for slipping because Taylor Ward has had a good offensive season. And I know that he's played kind of a neutral defense out there, but I don't forgive Rengifo just giving up. I mean, he gave up and was like, no problem. I'll get it.
Right. Don't worry, guys. I got it. Yeah. You're the only one out there who can get it. Right. And that's the problem with Rengifo. And Mike, I don't understand what the nonchalant outfield stuff is. Like, did the coaches say, hey, you know what, if that's going to be a triple, just, don't hustle. Don't worry about getting it in. Cause it's like, it's Ke'Bryan Hayes. Like he's motoring around the base paths and almost looked like he was going to try to go home on it.
Yeah, Rengifo was lucky that he stopped. He was lucky that he stopped at third base. I mean, he probably could have kept going and could have put a little bit more pressure. Because here's the thing. The Angels wouldn't have expected it because what their expectations are is people don't do anything with hustle. Their expectation is, they're going to stop at third. So he probably could have scored, had an inside the park home run because Rengifo decided to lollygag to the center field wall to get the ball.
There you go. That's a word I haven't heard since PE in high school. Lollygag. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, Bryce Teodosio does make the outfield defense better, but how much better? Well, better than Rengifo, but we've also got the stats that give us the answer. We'll talk about that in just a minute.
Every day is August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day. It's a brand new holiday they created for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. Just for 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP or you're eyeing a long shot division winner, or maybe you're ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1, which would be pretty remarkable and pretty awesome, this is your moment. All you have to do is visit the FanDuel app today. If you don't have it, download it right now and start planning your future bets because FanDuel Futures Day is one day and one day only. And so you can flex on your sports knowledge and maybe win some money. FanDuel, play your game.
This is a Locked On Podcast Network where it's your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Mike, when you dive into the Halo's approach at the plate, there's a lot that's been said about it this season. We've, talked endlessly about their offense on this show pretty often. We've celebrated when they've had a good approach, when they're making contact and having productive outs and not striking out. But we've also discussed the fact that they've had a terrible approach at times, a lack of contact. Lack of contact, leaving runners in scoring positions, swinging for the fences when you don't need to, trying to get everything back in one swing. That's not how things work, right?
By the way, bottom of the ninth, did you just chuckle at how they were all trying to get it back with one swing? Strike out. I mean, there's nothing changes for this team. And as one goes, they all go. And that's what I think is so fascinating about the stats that you're about to share with us.
Yeah, here's what caught our attention. The Angels' approach when they swing at the first pitch is very interesting. Here's the results on that so far this season. A 257 average, a 293 on base, and a .69 slugging, 69 doubles, 8 triples, 77 home runs, and a 111 OPS plus, and that's across 1,595 plate appearances. Now, tell us about the approach when they don't swing at the first pitch and what the stats are.
Yeah, here's their slash line: 219, a 313 on base, and a 384 slugging, 103 doubles, 8 triples, 99 home runs. They have a 94 OPS plus, and that's over 3,052 plate appearances. So a couple things we noticed. First, the Angels have more plate appearances when they don't swing at the first pitch than when they do. So 3,000 to 1,500. So more than half. Half of their at-bats have been longer at-bats, not just swinging at the first pitch.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. Second thing is they've hit more home runs when they don't swing at the first pitch. And then third, they are getting on base more when they don't swing at the first pitch, a 313 on base versus a 293. However, John, their average is higher when they jump the count and swing at the first pitch. Their slugging is higher, and their OPS plus is higher. Now, I know that there's a lot of discussion that we could have about Johnny Washington. There's a lot of discussion we could have about their approach at the plate prior to Johnny Washington. I looked up some stats today. The last time that Johnny was a hitting coach was with the Padres, and guess what? They led the league in strikeouts, but they also swung at the first pitch and had very similar stats that the Angels had when they swung at the first pitch. So, John, what's the best approach for this team and the way that they're made up right now?
I think you have to consider the sample size here, which is, more than double swinging at the first pitch. There are pitches where they don't swing at the first pitch, or plate appearances, I should say, where they don't swing at the first pitch. And I think that's going to skew the numbers a little bit, Mike. I think with a 219 batting average, that makes sense, because not swinging at the first pitch means that everything that comes after it is the plate appearances that they've had, right? And so when you consider the fact that it's such a larger sample size, that's more indicative of who they are. A 219 batting average, 313 on base, right? And then that slugging percentage, of course, jumps when they ambush that first pitch. But to me, it's a read the room kind of moment. And so I understand that there's some clear differences between these two approaches at the plate. But I think they say a lot about who this team has been. Again, with the fact that, they're ambushing those first pitches, 77 home runs on the first pitch. That's pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And when you consider that 99 have come after the first pitch and not swinging on that, I think that to have that many home runs and do that much damage in nearly half the plate appearances, I think is significant. I understand the OPS plus too, the fact that they're over league average when they swing at that first pitch. Again, all well and good, but to me, I just think the Angels continue to fail to read the room. And certainly there have been moments where it's like, ambush that first pitch. He's going to throw you a strike, like go after it. And more often than not, when we see that, it yields really good results. Again, going back to a 257 average, pretty dang good, right? 77 home runs, pretty dang good. But not always necessary. And sometimes I think these guys fail to read the room. We've seen it multiple times where, a pitcher's struggling out there. They can't find the zone. They are walking guys. They are giving up, easy contact and whatnot. And so you can't let these guys off the hook. And so while these results are, pretty, like I said, pretty good for swinging on the first pitch, I think you have to consider, what's this guy, what's he struggling with on the mound? I don't think they consider that a lot of the times. It's like, don't go chasing stuff. Don't go swinging after stuff. When this guy is, not able to locate the strike zone, don't go helping them out. And we've seen that multiple times this season, haven't we? Yeah.
And then on the flip side, you have somebody like Mike Trout, who has really struggled with making contact. In fact, in his last 7 games, 150, a 158 batting average. But John, his on-base percentage is 448. In fact, in his last 15 games, 224 batting average. But his on-base percentage is a 397.
Jeez.
And so he's getting on base. But I think the read the room is something, and we've talked about this, right? This has been the last 3 years we've talked about this. But this year specifically, we've talked about reading the room. For Trout, he kind of goes the other way, where he doesn't read the room. He's he's also like trying to draw pitches. He's trying to just get on base without making contact. At least it feels that way, because anytime he makes contact, it's unsuccessful. And he's hoping that the pitcher misses the zone. I don't know if he's afraid to swing, or if there's something wrong with his swing, or if he's just really fed up with his swing. But it just seems like the Angels just ebb and flow between bad and then really bad. Like there isn't ever like a really good moment. And if there are really good, right, like the rest of the lineup kind of goes as one batter goes, as Taylor Ward goes, or as Joe Adell goes. And this approach isn't surprising, because we've seen the effects of it, and we've seen the evidence of it in the last few games, like against the A's, right? They score all of those runs in the 10th inning, but couldn't score at all during the weekend. I bet in this series, there's going to be a game where they just score in bunches.
Yeah.
And it's going to be remarkable, but they'll end up losing 2 out of 3, right? Like that, because their approaches are just not thoughtful. They're not reading the room. They're not choking up. They're not moving the runner over. I think they got to build a team. And I think they have that team right now that focuses on productive outs, that focuses on moving runners over.
That's what the Reds were doing last night. Like
absolutely.
They had tons of great hits. Here's one thing I'll say. Last night felt very unlucky. I felt like the Angels were really hitting the ball and putting it in play well. And it was just like, there's so much stuff that was right at people. Right. But on the flip side, the Reds hits are landing for hits. And maybe that has something to do with what you've brought up several times on this show, is the defensive shading. It's like, stop playing these shading things and just play straight up the way that you should be. Right. And so that's been an issue for the Angels as well. But when I look at what the Reds were doing last night, it's kind of like what happened with the Pirates, Mike. Remember when the Pirates came to town, and it was just like, make contact and put the ball in play and go the other way when you need to. That seems to be kind of what you're getting at here.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with what your assessment was from last night, that the Angels had some unlucky moments. But again, 3 innings in a row, you have 2 runners on.
Yeah.
And what do? You strike out, or you
weakly
pop out.
That's the thing is they're doing stuff like that. It's more than just having some like unluck. It's striking out in those situations and popping out. Yeah.
Or they put themselves in a hole and they already have 2 outs, and then they get a walk, and then they get a single, right? And I love 2-out scoring. 2-out scoring is fantastic when we're doing it, not when we're giving that up. But 2-out scoring is fantastic. The problem with the Angels, though, is last night they shot themselves in the foot every single time. There was always 2 outs. And then they put a rally together. And according to these stats, like in order to be successful in those rallies, they're going to have to jump on the first pitch. And I think the opposing team recognizes that. And so if this is the approach that the Angels are trying to put into a strategy, the other team's going to figure that out. And what I noticed last night is they weren't throwing anything close, but the Angels were still swinging, right?
Mm-hmm. Still chasing. I caught myself saying about Logan O'Hoppe, I was like, dude, you chase that pitch every single time. It's like watching Josh Hamilton against a left-handed slider. Remember how much he would go after that? It was just like, how many times do you have to see a left-handed slider before you stop swinging at it? Because like, do they all look like they're going to be in the zone to you? I don't understand. And I felt that way about O'Hoppe going after the off-speed stuff out of the zone. He's just reaching for that bottom corner every single time, and it goes right past his bat, or he's out in front of it, right? And so just really frustrating. I hope that there's a change at hitting coach next year, because if what you said about him being with the Padres, and then I know he was assistant hitting coach with the Cubs, I just think that something's got to change here, because like you said, the Angels have the pieces to put something together that can be more cohesive than it is right now. But the approach that they're going with, whether it's swinging at the first pitch or not, it's just not getting the job done.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. They are the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason, it's here. Wild, isn't it? It's here. It's heating up. College football isn't far behind. And now's the perfect time to lock in your season-long more or less picks for the 2025 football season, all before week 1 kicks off. Whether you're eyeing a big-name quarterback or maybe a breakout running back, Prize Picks makes it really easy for you to get in on the game. So for a season-long pick, John, I want to ask you, where would you place our favorite quarterback, Brock Purdy? Are you going 25.5 more than that for touchdowns, or 25.5 less than that for touchdown passes?
Oh, touchdown passes, easy, because he's the king of getting those short touchdown passes. So I'm taking the more on this one, Mike.
Okay, and then how about our boy that is back at running back now? Of course, I'm blanking on his name. The Christian McCaffrey. Thank you.
Yes.
More.
I'm taking the more.
Yeah, taking more, because that guy's fantastic. Whatever he does now that he's healthy. John, download the Prize Picks app. Everydayers, download the Prize Picks app. Use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. Again, the promo code is LOCKEDONMLB. $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
Bryce Teodosio is somebody who's really improved the Angels' defense. And the advanced metrics tell us that he's already saved the Angels 4 runs, defensive runs saved, right, Mike? And he's also got 5 outs above average in center field. And you can just identify that from the eye test just by watching him out there, making diving catches and things that you think aren't going to, or that are going to land in front of him. He's able to come up with those. So that's been really great. But there have been learning moments for Bryce Teodosio in the outfield. If you take us back, Michael, to Sunday's game for a minute.
Yeah, Joe Adell's camped under a fly ball in right field. And then there's this runner at third base getting ready to tag up. Suddenly into the picture comes Bryce Teodosio, literally came flying into the frame and makes the catch on a full sprint. Then he falls to the ground, and that runner at third did score. That was one of the many examples of Teodosio learning how to play center field in the big leagues, because that should have been Joe Adell's ball. He would have had a clean throw to home plate. Maybe that runner doesn't make it, or maybe they don't tag up, but Teodosio makes the catch running away from the infield and then sliding and falling. Of course, that runner's going to tag up. Now, Bryce said, when I caught the ball, I knew that I definitely should have let Joe catch it. He later said, we talked about it. We're going to continue to communicate, and we're going to continue to work together. Now, Teodosio has been good, but the problem is he covers a lot of ground and sometimes has bumped into his teammates, and that's why communication is necessary. In Detroit, when they were playing the Tigers, Teodosio collided with Joe Adell on one play, and he also collided with Taylor Ward on another play. Now, Ray Montgomery said that that's the next step of his growth. He's learning how to talk with his corner outfielders before and during the play. Communication is a real piece of how things get better. He said, Ray Montgomery, it's important that he's going after everything and he's catching the ball, but there's also times where he needs to defer given the situation.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, how do you feel about Adell and Ward? Or I should say, how do Adell and Ward feel about playing next to Bryce Teodosio? Jeff Fletcher of the OC Register had a great article, interviewed these guys. He said, Adell said Teodosio is a good problem to have. He added that when the 2 outfielders can cover enough ground, conflicts could arise, but he said he's being aggressive and we've got to find a rhythm out there and the language for what we want to do when we're in the gaps. He said, we're getting there. I told him, I'm glad you're erring on the side of being aggressive. And then Ward said, I'm just reminding him, you got to call it, even if you don't think I'm there or nobody's there. And then he agreed that he enjoys playing next to a center fielder who covers so much ground. He said he's been great for the corner outfielders to take less off our legs. That's funny coming from Ward. It's great. He does all the work for me.
I knew you would laugh at that.
Says he's awesome that he has that capability. I don't care if he takes a ball that I should catch. It doesn't matter to me. Again, just
I didn't realize this article was a comedy article.
Epitome of Taylor Ward. So, Mike, when you look at what Teodosio's done so far, and in terms of center field, but also at the plate, is he Peter Borges? Is he Brandon Marsh? Maybe Brandon Marsh with the Phillies, or Brandon Marsh with the Angels, or is he something better than that? What do you think?
He reminds me a little bit of Peter Borges. He really does.
I agree.
Peter Borges, fast, quick, good on defense, leaping over the wall, had a quick bat, right? You didn't think you're going to get much power from him, but then he ends up knocking one over the wall, or he hits a triple, or he comes through with a single. Kind of feels like Peter Borges, which is great, but also concerning because Borges, he heated up and then he flamed out. And so I just don't know what expectations would be appropriate to place on Bryce Teodosio, because he's somebody that, we're excited about. I'd love to see a larger sample size, more plate appearances. I love the defense. Don't get me wrong. Love the defense. and he's brought a bit of a bat, but let's see what happens when they have tape on him. Let's see what happens when pitchers figure him out and he has to adjust back. I would love for him to be a 240, 250 hitter, right? Stealing some bags, playing some great defense. The thing that I like about him, John, is that he does bring great defense and he's fast. He gets good jumps. There's a lot of catches that he has made based on his stats. There's a lot of catches that he has made so far this season that would have been difficult catches for any other player. Yeah. His routes to the ball and the way that he has jumped off the crack of the bat, that has helped him. And we saw what happened with Rengifo last night. Teodosio is just so good at reading where the ball's going and getting there and then making it look easy. And we haven't had that in a really long time on this team anywhere on the field. Zach Neto is a good defender at short. It's nice to have somebody up the middle. It'd be great if maybe we could get Logan O'Hoppe back to a positive defensive side of the ball, because then our core right up the middle would be solid on D.
Here's something that I looked up just now on FanGraphs, and I wanted to see what kind of production the Angels have gotten out of center field all season versus other teams all season. And you have to remember that the bulk of this is Joe Adell. Mm-hmm. And in center field, the Angels have a 98 weighted runs created plus. That's 2% worse than league average, but that's also 14th in the entire league, Mike. Mm-hmm. Ahead of them is the Dodgers with an even 100. The Rangers are ahead of them with a 102, San Francisco with a 104, and San Diego with a 106. The best is, of course, Trent Grisham in center field for the Yankees with a 123 weighted runs created plus. But here's the key, is that the Angels only have a 226 batting average at center field this season. They've got a 442 slugging, and that, of course, probably comes from all of Joe Adell's time playing center field. So again, it's like 226 is kind of where you might expect a Teodosio to end up hitting at the end of the season, right, over a larger sample size. So considering it has been Joe Adell in center field for most of the season, and the fact that you've seen Kyron Paris out there and whatnot, it makes sense that the Angels are kind of near the middle of the league at 14th. But I think if you were to remove Joe Adell from that equation and it was a Teodosio all season long, you might not be as close to league average as you would think. But I think that this number here is very telling, because once we get away from this season and we see more of Bryce Teodosio in center field, probably next year, right? I don't think Nelson Rada is going to be the guy that they go to in 2026, at least not yet, at least not to start. I think it's important for him to have a little bit more time in the minor leagues. But all that to say, it's very interesting to see that right now the Angels' production out of center field, a lot of it due to Joe Adell, is about league average right there in the middle. But it'll be interesting to see how that's affected by Bryce Teodosio for the rest of the season in terms of offensive production.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day, and please subscribe to Locked On Angels on YouTube so you don't miss all of this great Halo content, including our postcast with Gavin Carlson. He's live after every game right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.
Hey, once again, jump into the comment section on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button, whether you're watching or listening, get into the conversation. You can also get into the conversation on Twitter at Locked On Angels, or on Twitter and Instagram at Super Halo Bros. Mike, what do we have on deck for Wednesday's show?
You mentioned Nelson Rada. Man, since he got to AAA, he's been tearing it up. So we're going to share those stats. Plus, why isn't Christian Moore playing every day? That's, I think, a good question. We have an answer, and we're going to share that tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
One singular answer? All right, we'll get into that conversation. Looking forward to that. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Wednesday.
Jeff Carr, Locked On Reds. Congratulations.
Congrats, bro. You got a good team.